I am Jari-Pekka Kaleva, the Managing Director of the European Games Developer Federation, EGDF. We unite 19 trade associations from 19 European countries. Together, these associations represent more than 2,500 game developer studios out of 5,000 studios in Europe. And many of them are currently mapping the opportunities of metaverse, play to earn, and NFT games. We all know game markets are global, but what does that actually mean? When we have a look on games industry market data, this is a picture that is often represented to us. Europe and Middle East and Africa as a single market for games, Asia as one market area, and South and North America as another ones. When we ask from policymakers, this is a picture they give to us. Lots of trade agreements and free market areas that unify and harmonize the rules and regulations, or at least are planning to do so. But unfortunately, regulation is local. If we would paint a picture that is closer to reality, this might be it. And it is questionable how united the rules are inside federations like the EU and the United States. So, game markets are global, but regulation is local, which means that global regulatory fragmentation is a huge challenge for play-to-earn game developers. The second thing that is often misunderstood is how a game works. Often people think that all a player does is that she or he just takes a device, for example, a mobile phone, in her or his hand, and starts to play a game from a game developer studio. However, the reality looks much more complex. We have data flows, content flows, information flows, financial flows, and so on. And each of them are a subject of a different rules and regulations. Advertisement is regulated by consumer protection rules. The way an application is downloaded is regulated by consumer protection and platform rules. Content of the games is subject to copyright rules and protection of minors rules. Data flows are regulated by privacy and data protection rules. Information flows are regulated by the consumer protection and data protection rules. And there are telecommunication rules for the basic network infrastructure behind the game. Financial flows are covered by accounting and taxation rules, and user-generated content by copyright rules. So, play to earn and NFTs, how are they regulated? I don't have a clear answer to that, but these might be the questions that you might want to ask. First of all, when it comes to players and play to earn, we have to consider data protection and privacy rules. In the EU, relevant questions are, among others, what personal data is used in the game? How do data flows work? Who has access to data? And where the data is stored in the NFT value chain? What legal basis are you using for processing personal data? Are you service providers, data controllers, or data processors? How players can exercise their right to information, right to access data, right to data portability, right to rectification, right to erasure, right to possible restrictions to processing, and right to object direct marketing, and how NFTs are included in the privacy policy. Then we have consumer protection rules, and among other questions like, are play to earn NFT and crypto games a platform, a digital service, or digital content? All of them are covered by different rules. What pre-contractual information should be provided beforehand for buyers of NFTs, and by who? When does the transaction happen? At the point when in-game cryptocurrencies are exchanged against real-world money? Or when cryptocurrencies are exchanged against NFTs? Or at both places? When is the trade of NFTs considered to happen between a business and another business, B2B, business and consumers, B2C, and when does it happen between consumers, C2C, all covered by different rules? How are consumer protection responsibilities shared between business seller and NFT trading platform? Who has visibility to the real-world market value of the NFT item? When does consumer have a right to withdraw from or terminate the contract and return the NFTs? What are the return and money back policies? Are players able to understand what they are really buying? For example, where are they able to use the item in questions? What rights do they really own? And then we have protection of minors rules, and among other questions like, under what conditions are you allowed to sell NFTs for children and other vulnerable consumers? Are you able to block children from accessing your game? It is important to remember that some countries demand that you secure children's access to your cultural products, like your game, and some countries demand that you protect them by blocking their access to your game. And then we have gambling rules. For example, when does an NFT game with random elements become gambling? How are you able to organize in-game tournaments or competitions without falling under gambling regulation? And then we have copyright rules. For example, when are NFTs considered to be artistic content and when computer programs? What are copyrights given to a buyer of NFTs with the purchase? What are author rights over artistic NFTs in this context? How are the new copyright law reporting obligations implemented with artistic NFTs? Secondly, when it comes to game developers and play to earn, in this context, we have to consider, first of all, fundamental rights, like many platforms and banks are hesitant to allow transactions related to NFTs. How much can banks or digital distribution platforms like App Store limit the fundamental freedom to engage in commercial activity? Many countries all over the world are have banned NFTs. How much are EU member states or non-EU countries allowed to limit the fundamental freedoms to engage in commercial activity and right for property? And then we have platform rules, like, for example, will upcoming Digital Markets Act for Apple and Google allow payments through third-party cryptocurrency providers on their platforms? Will upcoming Digital Markets Act force Apple and Google to allow third-party metaverse game platforms on their platforms? And then we have whistleblower regulation. For example, should a game developer provide a whistleblower system? Who should have access to it in the value chain? And then we have questions related to criminal law. For example, who is criminally responsible for fraud? Who is criminally responsible for copyright violations? Who is criminally responsible for money laundering? Who is criminally responsible for tax evasions, and so on? And finally, we have environmental rules. How much information about CO2 footprint of your NFT do you have to collect under upcoming EU regulations? Thirdly, when it comes to financial transactions and play to earn business model, we have to consider, first of all, taxation rules. VAT rules, like, for example, who is responsible for collecting and paying the VAT from P2C transactions? What kind of paper track a game developer has to provide on the transactions? How to identify in which country the transaction takes place? and corporate taxation rules, like, for example, how NFTs and cryptocurrencies are marked in financial books of the company. What kind of incomes NFTs are from taxation perspective? Are they royalties or some other kind of income? And personal taxation rules, like, for example, when are professional players playing the game for earning money through it considered to be your employees, and when independent businesses? How are you able to pay part of the bonuses for your employees as your own cryptocurrency or NFTs? And then we have investment and banking rules, like, for example, are your NFTs like to constitute a type of regulated financial instrument, such as a security, for example? And then we have money laundering and terrorism financing rules, like, for example, is the cryptocurrency wallet used by the NFT seller anti-money laundering compliant? Or is the marketplace used for buying or selling NFTs anti-money laundering compliant? And finally, we have trade embargoes. Has the NFT marketplace excluded embargo countries from the distribution or in the sale conditions? Lots of questions, but not that many clear answers. And please keep in mind that questions I have just mentioned are just the beginning of a complex regulatory debate on implementing the industrial era rules to the digital era technology. However, at a general level, we can say that there are several parallel developments that might be happening at the moment. First of all, basic understanding of key regulatory requirements, for example, General Data Protection Regulation in the EU and COPPA in the United States in the area of privacy, are becoming basic industry expertise. Secondly, digital distribution platforms and corporate groups might take more responsibility on consumer data protection, tax reporting, etc., and help you to overcome global regulatory fragmentation. Thirdly, in some countries, like in China, you might need to use local service providers. Fourthly, the sad fact is that access to global games markets increasingly is requiring paying for companies like Ernst & Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, or Deloitte. And lastly, fortunately, all free and single market area agreements are updated by governments to cover digital content. This hopefully will reduce the fragmentation of global games markets on the regulatory side in the long run. So how a game developer studio can operate in this kind of regulatory fragmented environment? First of all, know what you are doing. Know your business and how it works. Know your regulatory obligations. Know what your service providers are doing and what they are not doing. Ask help from experts when needed. Secondly, keep your players happy. Be transparent in all your actions and support your players. Most likely, your problems start from angry players. Thirdly, consider a modular approach on player experience. Make sure that certain features in a game can be turned on or off depending where a player is located in and what are the local regulatory requirements. And fourthly, learn to navigate with regulatory market access risks. If any of your service providers tells to you that there are no regulatory challenges or risks, be suspicious. Thank you for following, and thank you so much for Korean Mobile Game Association for inviting me here today.